British Spy Stories. Season 3. Official Denial. Episode 25. An urgent call to attend a meeting with Sir Ralph Coltrane is never welcome. As the lift inside the Foreign Office moves noiselessly up from the basement, Sir Bernard goes through in his mind what he will say if his guess is right, that Coltrane wants to talk about Oxwood's arrest. Sir Ralph's office is a grand affair, at one end of a wide corridor. His secretary is a woman who seems permanently to disapprove of anyone who wants to see her boss. She stands up when Sir Bernard arrives and knocks on the inner office door. After no answer, they go in anyway, and she seats Sir Bernard on a chair in front of a desk that dominates the room. After a minute, a door at one side opens, and a bustling Sir Ralph walks in. The man launches into the meeting without preamble. "We're worried, Bernard," he says. "This Oxwood chap. Turns out he's a traitor." "He was under a lot of pressure, Ralph."
"We're all under pressure, Bernard, but we don't give away state secrets. Are there others, do you think?"
"There probably are, Ralph. No spy operation is watertight."
"There was this other thing too," says Coltrane. "We lost an asset who has been providing us with intelligence. Melnick, was it? What was that about?"
"We couldn't control him, Ralph. He had provided good material for us, but he got mixed up with criminal elements who were helping themselves to NATO arms. We had no choice."
"The criminal chap died too, I understand."
Sir Bernard nods.
"That's quite a few events in a short space of time, Bernard. Do you think?"
"There are high tensions all around, Ralph. It's not neat and tidy out there, you know."
"I prefer it if nothing else lands on my desk in the next few weeks like this, Bernard. We're in the middle of some sensitive discussions with the PM and the Minister about Hungary. We need to be seen to be pulling our weight. When's your second crack at that arms dealer chap?"
"In the next few days, Ralph," says Sir Bernard.
"We need to succeed this time. It would do our reputation no end of good if I can report a success around the table at number 10.
"We'll do our best, Ralph."
"I know you will, Bernard."
He smiles, but it makes Sir Bernard feel slightly uncomfortable.
"Are your people out there the best we can find?"
"They are."
"No more risks, I hope?"
"There are always risks, Ralph." There's a pause and Coltrane looks at Sir Bernard.
"You're fully behind this whole official denial thing, are you, Bernard?"
"What do you mean?"
"Think it's a good idea?"
"I never comment on politics, Ralph. You know that. A long time ago, I learned to not consider the ethics of what happens in the intelligence community." Coltrane pauses again, for what seems just too long.
"Quite so, old man. Quite so."
The night has descended on the city. Marjorie sits at a table away from the window of the Monmouth coffee shop in the Seven Dials district of London. She takes a gulp of her flat white and gazes into the middle distance, lost in her thoughts about what to do. Inside her handbag, a muffled vibration sounds. That is not the ringtone of her MI5 phone or her personal phone, but a third device that only one person in the world knows the number of. Maxime. She pulls it out and looks at the screen. The phone is locked down to only be able to receive calls from Maxime's phone. She wonders if this is a trap, but then thinks that she probably has nothing left to lose. She pushes the green call answer button and puts the mobile up to her ear.
Valentina?
It's a woman's voice.
Who's this? I'm Maxim's daughter. Will you meet me? I'm in London. I have something here that my father left for you. Did you know he was dead? No, I didn't know, she lies. I have a letter from him, addressed to you, says the daughter. He sent it to me a week ago. I live in Paris, but the police in London called me and told me they had found him. So I came over straight away.
If this is a trap, it's believable. Maxime had spoken about his daughter. Marjorie will have to test the girl to confirm if this is fake or not.
Can I ask you some questions? Of course.
Where were you born?
Strasbourg. Why?
It's the correct answer. Marjorie asks another. What was your mother's maiden name?
Janina.
2 out of 2. How did she die?
She was run over by a tram in Berlin when I was 11.
Marjorie registers the answers and considers the risk to meeting a stranger. Go to London Bridge Station, she says. Platform 12. I'll call you on this number in an hour. She ends the call. Just over an hour later, Marjorie is standing near the entrance to the Shard, the skyscraper that sits a few minutes from London Bridge Station. She had called Maxime's daughter 5 minutes ago and told her the new destination to meet. Now she waits across the street from the skyscraper, watching each person who walks anywhere near it. A dark-haired woman in her 20s turns out of the passageway that leads from the station. She stops and looks around, then goes inside the Shard's entrance. Marjorie watches through the vast windows to the lobby as the woman presses the button to the lift that only leads to one place, the hotel on the 35th floor. Maxime had shown Marjorie a photograph of his daughter, Vorochka, and this definitely looks like the girl. Marjorie waits for 1 more minute to double-check that no tails have been attached to follow the woman by MI5 or Moscow, but there's no one. The lift doors open and Marjorie steps out onto the 35th floor. The whole city is laid out before her. The lights stretch from Canary Wharf in the east to St. Paul's and Chelsea Bridge in the west. She turns the corner to the restaurant and can see Vorochka standing and looking out at the view. She walks up and stands beside her. Have you been up here before? She says as she arrives. The girl turns her head.
No. Incredible. Are you Valentina?
I'm sorry about your father, says Marjorie. There's a pause. Then Vorochka says,
He loved you. Did you know?
Marjorie stiffens.
He told me that many times.
Maxime's daughter smiles. She seems genuine to the spy, who has spent her life assessing people's honesty. They stand for a few moments watching the movement of vehicles and people on the roads far below them. You said he left something for me. Vorochka pulls the strap of her bag from her shoulder and brings out a blue envelope. She hands it to Marjorie. Only one word, Valentina, is written on the outside in a neat yet elegant style. She puts one finger under the flap and tears across the top. The envelope contains a single sheet of thick, cream-coloured writing paper, with Maxime's handwriting on it. Marjorie reads the Russian words slowly, and her eyes start to water as she does so. She wipes a tear away and takes a deep breath out. "Do you know what he did for a living?" she says. "Yes." Marjorie hands the letter across to the girl, who reads it. Something is rattling inside the envelope, and Marjorie picks out a USB storage stick. "Dad says the stick contains the Devoyne list. What's that?" says Verochka. Marjorie looks at the girl's blue eyes. "All of the Russian agents in the UK. Your father has given me a way out. I can trade that list for my freedom and retire to a cottage by the sea." "That was his dream too," says Verochka. "He wanted both of you to do it, but he probably never told you." Marjorie smiles. "I'd still like to do that. If they don't hunt me down," she says. "Will they try and kill you?" The girl looks incredulous. "They've already tried once. They'll be after you too, now that you know about the list." Verochka pulls her eyebrows together. Marjorie looks at the girl again. "We need to go and explain it all to MI5. They'll do a deal," she says. "But we need to go now. And don't look worried." Marjorie grasps hold of the girl's hand, and the women drop back to ground level, then hail a taxi outside in the street. Marjorie hands the driver £50 in cash to get them across town as quickly as he can go. But the London traffic near the station is dense, and the taxi can only creep forward slowly and join a line of cars and vans on the main road. They pick up speed after that, and the driver dodges into some side streets to avoid the worst of the traffic. He takes them west, past the vast bulk of the Tate Modern Art Gallery, then south, to cross the Thames at Westminster. As the car sits waiting to get out onto the final turn that crosses over the water, something catches Marjorie's eye. A man on the far side of the street. He appears to be waving to someone else on the pavement near their cab. Marjorie looks across and can see another man, here, nearer, too. She knows from her experience that these are SVR, assassins. "We need to go," she says, suddenly, and grabs for the girl's hand, then says to the cab driver, "Open the doors." The lights go out on the taxi doors, and Marjorie dives into the centre of the traffic with the girl. There are queues of vehicles in both directions on this stretch of road, and they run down between the lines of traffic. Marjorie tries to keep a watch on the reaction of the two men on the pavements. She can tell they've seen their escape from the taxi, and the men are tracking them along each side of the street. Marjorie and Verochka reach the eastern end of Westminster Bridge and run across the road again, causing two drivers to loudly blare their horns at the women. It starts to rain as they reach the pavement on the other side and walk rapidly through the crowd who are pouring over Westminster Bridge. The rain starts to beat down on them as they slowly make their way to the west bank of the river. The Thames below them is choppy, and the water rises and falls beneath their feet. Marjorie looks back, and the two men are running together now, 50 yards behind. Ahead of the women, the Big Ben Tower begins its sequence of rings to tell Londoners that it's 7 o'clock in the evening. As they reach Parliament Square, there's a huge crowd of tourists gaggling around outside the building and taking photographs. Marjorie grabs Verochka's hand and drags her through the people. They emerge from the other side, but the Russian girl slips on the wet ground. She falls hard onto the paving stones and a red line of blood oozes from a cut above her knee.
"We'll look at it when we get to Thames House," says Marjorie. "I'm not letting you die too. I made a mistake before. I've never forgotten Ella."
Marjorie drags her further along the path. The two assassins are barging their way through the crowd behind them, and it slows them down slightly, but not enough to stop the men.
"Across here,"
yells Marjorie, as she tugs her companion across Abingdon Street, dangerously close to the speeding cars that are ploughing along in the rain.
"I can't run any more,"
says Verochka.
"My leg is hurting." "You must, they're catching up."
The women run on, Verochka limping now. Their clothes are soaked through. The men behind are gaining ground. With 100 yards to go before they reach the sanctuary of the MI5 building, one of the assassins puts on a burst of speed and gets to within 10 feet of Verochka. Marjorie is another 10 feet ahead. The man reaches out and makes contact with the daughter's arm. His hand curls around it, and he yanks her to a standstill. She swings round and again falls to the ground. Marjorie turns when she hears the cry from the young woman, and she immediately pulls out a handgun from her bag.
"Let her go,"
she calls to the man, the rain washing down on her face. The second guy is closing in too. The first assassin pulls out his own handgun and puts it to Verochka's temple. Marjorie can only think of one solution. She walks the few feet across to the man and fires at his head. He falls back, the side of his face a mass of blood and bone, and the second guy stops at the sight of his colleague.
"Don't move,"
she screams at him.
"Verochka, get up."
The rain is heavier now. The water cascades out of the sky. Maxime's daughter manages to stand. Marjorie keeps the gun trained on the assassin, and the two women walk slowly backwards along the path. The assassin waits, but then gives chase. The women turn the corner into the back door of MI5 headquarters. The man arrives and fires a shot at them. But he is just too late, and the shot thumps against the security door as it closes behind them. They tumble into the reception area and onto the floor. 3 security guards are there, with guns drawn. The water from the rain pools around the women. Marjorie lets out a deep sigh as they sit on the floor, and both raise their hands.